anytime you'd like to, Dana. So, so we're not only concerned about our people and their domestic animals, we're also, of course, concerned about livestock and about forest. So I provide a little bit of information about our demographics. We're just shy of 480,000 people. About half of our households speak another language other than English in their household, and our prominent languages are English and Spanish. I have listed our median household income, but I feel like it's a little bit deceptive just because we have so many rural communities that are densely dealing with like poverty. And so, and of course, those communities also may need additional support during disasters. So I know each county is made up differently. So I want to talk a little bit about our organizational structure. Dana and I are under the Tulare County Health and Human Services Agency brand or umbrella. We are considered a super agency because administration, behavioral health, human services, and public health all fall under one umbrella. And so I wanted to highlight a few programs that are essential during emergency planning and response. In our county, county OES falls under HHSA and our administration, which I hear is very unique. Integrated Services is our program that provides services to our unhoused population, and we found them to be a key program during response. Of course, Human Services, Adult Services, and the Kings Tulare Area Agency on Aging fall under Human Services. And then Public Health has Public Health Emergency Preparedness Program. This is not an all-inclusive list, it's just a few key programs. So we've had over the last 15 years many different types of emergencies. We've had power outages. They may not all require an emergency proclamation, but they may require a response. So we've dealt with the pandemic, of course, and then livestock mortality, lack of adequate healthcare facilities, freezes and excessive heat, which we are very sensitive to because our older population and individuals with disabilities may be more impacted by the extreme weather. So we are very sensitive to that. We've had, of course, a major drought, and we've had multiple floods, but the most prominent one in recent years was the 2023 floods, for which we had 3 to 4 shelters running at any given time. And our last shelter did not transition until 2 months after the floods. So we learned a lot during those couple months. And we typically have fires annually, and we also dealt with tree mortality. So one of the things that the agency did prior to me taking this position is they developed an Access and Functional Needs Liaison Team, or our AFN team. And the purpose of this team was to be used as an internal resource for AFN emergency planning and response. Each branch has a designated AFN liaison, and that person or people are used as subject matter experts during a disaster. The challenges we've had with this team is first, like there wasn't a clear strategy when it was developed, and then the level of engagement varied. And then we had changes in personnel with both the branches and OES, and the direction of the team changed based on personnel changes. Dana, did you want to add anything here?
I'll do the next one.
Sure.
Yeah. And this position is actually Carrie, so I was going to talk a little bit about this. So when we first started, when she talked about the access and functional needs team, it was division managers in different areas. And, in addition to running all of our other programs, we just, really didn't have the time. And we were trying to go to emergency meetings and learn everything we could about emergencies, but also at the same time, again, do our own job. So it was decided upon to hire an administrative specialist. That's a classification in our agency, and make that person our emergency specialist. And that's how we ended up with Carrie. And I can tell you in the beginning, we had very lofty. We thought the county was going to be able to do everything, and we were going to know where every single person was and how we were going to get to them and how to get their animals out and how to do everything. And we were going to do that on our own. And bringing Carrie in brought a little new perspective to it, and she's developed some things that I'm hoping you guys can learn from, and she can share, that has again really taught us a lot. But Carrie really has become our expert, and I really can't imagine not having her in emergency. She is the one that we go to when the rubber hits the road.
Thank you, Dana. So when I was asked to be the chair of our AFN liaison team, the first thing I wanted to do was to develop a strategy to get a focus and a direction for the team. So the first thing I wanted to do was embrace whole community planning, which the gist of it is that one, government can't do everything, and that we need really everybody in the community to plan and prepare for emergencies. The other piece of it is that you really consider and try to meet the needs of your whole community and not just kind of do what's easy. And the third part of it is your community runs on a daily basis. There's programs and organizations providing support to the community every day. And so it's about embracing what already works in your community and not trying to reinvent the wheel or to do something separate from it. So I liked that whole concept. So that's what we kind of adopted. And I wanted to focus on communication, evacuation, and sheltering. Additionally, I wanted to develop resources for our HHSA personnel to utilize during an emergency. So resources. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is partnerships. I began researching all the different organizations that are functioning in our county. So I started a spreadsheet and I looked at nonprofit organizations, community organizations, and just other government organizations in the county with their contact information and any information I had regarding the populations they serve. Additionally, I asked each branch to provide a list of their current partnerships, who they do business on a daily basis already with, and their contact people and the populations they serve. So obviously some of that information was overlapped, but we could see who we were already working with also. And lastly, I obtained a list of our current HHSA contracts of goods and services. So I already knew kind of what we had in place. And then I highlighted all of those contracts that may be useful during emergencies. So I want to give a few examples of some of our partnerships. I wanted to highlight first the Community Services Employment Training, CSET. They manage most of the senior centers in the county, and they also operate the Meals on Wheels to Homebound Seniors program. Next up, we have the Central Valley Regional Center and Resources for Independent Central Valley. They serve people with disabilities and their families. United Way of Tulare County runs the 211 system. They have different programs such as the Emergency Food and Shelter Program, back to school supplies, and a lot of others. The Tulare County Office of Education, they obviously provide school resources and services, but they are also connected to all of the superintendents in the county. So that can be helpful when you need to get a hold of particular schools or the superintendents. And then lastly, the Family Resource Centers, obviously they're providing family services. And for us, they acted as donation centers during our 2023 floods. So in terms of evacuation, I wanted to know like what actual public transportation we have in the county. So here we have the Tulare County Regional Area Transit Agency and the Visalia Transit Agency. The regional one operates in the whole county with the exception of the city of Visalia. So I reached out to these organizations and I basically asked about their fleet information, how many buses they have, what types of buses, their capacity, wheelchair accessibility, fuel type, number of drivers, just to kind of see what we'd be working with in the county if something happened. Um, Additionally, I contacted some of our day programs that we've had long-term relationships that I knew had paratransit vehicles, and a couple of them were willing to send me their fleet information. And actually, during our 2023 floods, they were able to help assist evacuating a medical facility um, by using their vehicle. So it did end up being very helpful. So I also researched like the private transport companies in our county. A lot of them are just like limousine companies and don't have accessible transportation, but they have provided transport services in the past, like during COVID. They were able to provide transport to people that didn't necessarily need paratransit vehicles. I also just kind of want to mention the non-emergency medical transport companies. Um, Here it really falls under the public health emergency preparedness program that's kind of under their realm. So I didn't keep a list of all those, but if you're not familiar in your area, I would also suggest keeping an eye on kind of what the medical transport companies are in your area and what their capabilities are as well. So with communication, my focus was on sheltering and points of distribution. As I said, we learned a lot through our sheltering experience of the 2023 floods. The One of the things I did was I identified all of our contracts for interpreting services, so I knew who to pull from if we needed to. Additionally, I requested that each of the shift, anytime we had sheltering or a pod, that each shift had at least one certified Spanish speaking staff. Additionally, I wanted all responding staff who were certified bilingual interpreters to be identified on our shift calendar because we really didn't know who was certified and who wasn't. So we wanted to get get a better idea of who we were working with and to be able to best meet the needs of the evacuees. And the last one is seeking other resources that assist with interpretation if our staff or contracts aren't immediately available. That's a work in progress. I'm still working on that one, but it's something I want to accomplish. So with the AFN coordinator, so OES created an AFN coordinator position within the Emergency Operations Center. And so this person isn't responsible for actually making the messaging for the community, but they are there to kind of provide additional insights or considerations for our AFN populations. So, for example, if a government representative creates and posts a live social media video that does not include any kind of interpretation, the AFN coordinator may say, "Oh, we need to have it interpreted in Spanish." The way this position has been described of me, or for me, is just kind of being the heart and conscience of the EOC. And so I really embrace that. So that's one of the things we're doing to try to assist with communication and the AFN populations and communities, or populations and individuals. Lastly, I wanted to add, which I forgot to put on the slide, one of the things I noticed last year during the summer, we had several days of like 110, 111 degree heat. And of course, again, I noticed that that on our social media feeds, all of the messaging seems kind of related to just kind of the general the public messaging. And so I wanted some messaging to go out specifically towards the older population and individuals with disabilities, because there may be additional considerations that they have to look at. So we did do additional messaging around the heat for our older folks and for people with disabilities. So that's another way we're trying to address communication and assisting the community. So the resources for sheltering, one of the things that we immediately knew once the floods occurred was that we needed additional training for our staff. So after the floods were over, I coordinated with Red Cross to provide multiple shelter trainings to our staff. I also maintain a list of staff who have received training and who have experienced working in the shelters. And lastly, for sheltering, I gathered and created a list of equipment and supplies. We were, I don't want to say given, but there is a California Department of Social Services trailer in our county. And so I kept a list of all of the supplies and equipment in the trailer. Any equipment that we obtained during the 2023 floods, specifically for human services. And then I also asked when we received other supplies from like other organizations redistributing, like at one point the state redistributed some like wheelchairs and crutches and those sort of things. I keep a list of those items that we received. At one point, Red Cross also had to close one of their warehouses, so we were able to receive some of their cots. So that was included in our equipment and supplies list. So if we have an emergency, then we know, hey, what do we have in our inventory? And if we don't have that, we can go to the Public Health Emergency Preparedness Program because they have supplies of their own. They keep their own list, but if we don't have it, they may have it in terms of the medical supplies. We also, I don't know if we actually mentioned, I know it's on an earlier slide, Human Services doesn't have any extra or special funds for the work that I do or for what we're trying to do here. So fortunately, our FEP program already has storage space, and so they were willing to store all of our items with their items in their space because we didn't have a spot or the funding to be able to support that. So fortunately, we have that there, but they are our go-to people when we don't have our medical equipment that we need. So response. When we have an emergency response, each branch runs a client report and the staff contacts the clients to determine if they have needs related to the disaster or evacuation. Also, Adult Services contacts partners who provide services to seniors like Meals on Wheels to ask about unmet needs. We communicate and coordinate with the Red Cross if an evacuation is a possibility. We will also reach out to other organizations such as nonprofits if there are needs that we cannot meet. And then, of course, we'll set up and operate a point of distribution when necessary. Dana, did you want to talk about
just the importance of partnerships again here. And like Carrie said, that we have, talked to all of our partners. They really understand their role in the emergencies. So I can pick up the phone. If I pick up the phone and call of one of my providers and it's an emergency and they see my phone number and name, they immediately know what I'm calling for. And they will say, yes, Dana, we're calling all of our clients right now. So they already know that that's what they're supposed to be doing. And again, that's, I think, one of the important things about really building those partnerships so that because again, we can't do it alone. We thought we were going to be able to, but we can't. We need our partners to be out there and also be connecting with their clients and then letting us know, of any special needs. Another thing that, Carrie, that we found when we were talking about all of the equipment that was needed is I know during the floods, we needed a children's wheelchair. And this just gives you an example of why it's so important to have Carrie's position or at least have something in play where you know what you have and what you don't have is we needed a children's wheelchair and probably 3 to 4 hours of emails going back and before trying to find one. And, we were finally able to locate one, but now we don't have to worry about that. Now we can go to Carrie and say, okay, where is it and how do we get it? So again, just that importance of not wasting time, especially when there is an emergency.
And just a few other examples. We had a individual that had a van at a shelter, and they broke down there basically and were stuck and had no way of being able to pay for their own repairs. Well, the county couldn't pay for the repair of the van, so one of our nonprofit partners actually stepped up and was able to pay for the repairs of the van, so this individual could, leave the shelter, be on their way, and go to where they needed to go. So that was very helpful. We've also, in our Three Rivers community, which is up in the mountainous area, close to the entrance of the Sequoias, um, when we have fires, they are sensitive up there because they get the smoke. So we had a senior who needed an air purifier, and one of our nonprofit partners was able to step up and provide air purifiers. Um, Additionally, we Three Rivers has had a power outage, and we went up and distributed water and ice and those kind of things to kind of keep the community sustained during that time. So outreach, as we keep talking about partnerships, is crucial. So one of the big things that I think are important are emergency preparedness presentations. So I provided different presentations to organizations on how to prepare themselves as an organization, but also how to be able to assist their clients for preparing for disasters. Dana, did you want to
Yeah,
talk?
yeah. So from when we were doing our master plan for aging, one of the things that came out of it was having a roundtable where we invited multiple partners in to also discuss our master plan for aging. So I had Carrie come in there and do a presentation, and two of our the people that were in there were from organizations that were in our Three Rivers and then Badger, which are two very, very rural places and also highly populated with older adults. And so for them, it just really opened up the doors. This opened up the doors for them now becoming more of a partner with us. Before, it was almost like they would just call and say, what is the county going to do? And now they're like, no, what do we need to do? And how do we get on board? And so we've connected them actually with even the local fire departments up there. And they've had conversations with them. They are one of our Badger is in the process. They were able to get a grant, and they're actually building a shelter in their area. So just a lot of great things that are, yeah, thanks, Sydney. A lot of great things just from them being more aware and then taking on more responsibility. And I think some of it was just fear. It's like, we don't know what to do. County, go do it. And now they're like, they feel much better equipped on what they need to do, how they need to get, in touch with their clients, and what things they need to have in place so that it's not just all calling the county, and if we're all spread out in different directions, not being able to help them either. So it's been really a win-win for everyone.
So the other thing that I really encourage people to do is to network and build relationships. I've heard every emergency manager say this sentence or line in one way or another, but basically your emergency response is only as good as your relationships. And I found that to be true in my experience. But one of the things I would recommend is if you are not directly in connection with your emergency management programs like OES and FEP, establish a relationship with them, start communicating with them, and then also with the different services and organizations within your area. Um, it's nice to know that you have somebody you can call, or at least have an idea of who you may be able to call. But ultimately, um, actually making time to actually build the relationship is important, because that's eventually how you're going to get things done, or at least that's what I found. So I highly encourage that. The other thing is I recommend, of course, doing community outreach, providing the informational flyers and booklets, so they can hopefully be able to do some of their own preparedness, and be resilient and as individuals and as the community. So
Did you notice she says before or after bingo in her last sentence? Because we all know how important that is. Not during.
right, exactly. So during client contact, if it's appropriate. I don't encourage anything that's not appropriate, but of course the health and community fairs. But senior centers, one of the things I learned, I did work with parks at one point, and I found out if you try to disrupt a bingo game or lunch, they're not going to be very happy. So that's why I encourage you before or after. So in conclusion, um, my recommendation is just get started. Just look at what you already have going on in terms of your plans, your resources, and your partnerships. Determine what you may need that you don't already have, and then work at on filling those gaps by thinking creatively, developing relationships and partnerships, and then updating your plans when necessary. Some of the pitfalls I really encourage you to try to avoid are the magical thinking, which in my mind is you don't do any of the work, but you kind of just hope or expect everything to fall in place during a disaster. In the best circumstances, I don't see that happening. So I would really encourage you to avoid that. But also, it's easy to avoid because emergency preparedness and planning can be scary and it can be overwhelming. And so it's easier just to kind of put it aside. Um, the other thing is complacency, the idea that thinking, oh, it's not going to happen here. It's never going to happen here. It's not, hasn't happened here. Um, or just the, oh, we've handled a couple of fires. We got this. We know what we're doing. Um, if you avoid these pitfalls, you're just going to have a much better, hopefully, outcome if you are faced with that disaster. And it is so easy to fall into these three areas, but highly encourage you just start with avoidance. Even if you have to start small or even start poorly, just start because you're going to gain momentum and you'll figure it out along the way. So I've provided some resources here, the websites that I use a lot. I wanted to point out the Cal OES's Office of Access and Functional Needs. You have tons of resources on there. And uh, if you've never heard Vance Taylor speak, he is a phenomenal speaker. He's the director of that office, and I just encourage you to listen to him if you get the opportunity. But Sydney, are you able to send the PowerPoint out if people want these resources?
Yeah, I have been recording. I think we missed the first little bit, but I recorded and I'm going to send out the PowerPoint as well.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Perfect. So I won't go over each line, but they're there if you would like to look at them. So at this point, I'll stop for questions.
Um, I know Elaine had a question in the comments. I don't know if she still has it or if it was answered. Um, do you want, it was basically about how your VOAD and COAD fit into your plan and resources and if you reach out to them.
So we don't actually have BOADs in our county, or at least any, like I guess county recognized BOADs. Our Office of Emergency Services is currently creating a volunteer group, and so we would be contacting them. But the any any organizations, yeah, we would that assist with any kind of response. We do want to develop relationships. We just don't have any in our county currently.
Um, Kim has a question. Kim, do you want to go off mute or do you want me just to ask them?
I have two questions.
Okay.
One relevant to my job and one not, but I just had to ask. But Kim Fogel, Alameda County. The first one is, can you tell a little more about preparing for older people and, who may include possibly people with dementia who aren't mobile?
Um, so we encourage basically to provide the information that are in the booklets, and then of course with the organizations that are working directly with those individuals and their caregivers, we are basically answering any questions they have and encouraging the organizations they're already working with to be able to provide information. I would love to be able to get out more and to work more with those individuals. Um, it's so basically because I can't, we're going through the organizations and providing as much as we can.
Also, I was going to say, Kim, too, on that, we do, whoops, okay, I thought I was on mute still. Again, when we call like our organizations, we are making sure that they are in contact with their loved ones, especially people that have dementia, and making sure that they have somebody with them. If they don't have somebody with them, then, we will send a social worker if that's what we need to do, because we certainly don't want somebody there alone. Most of the time they do have somebody with them. We haven't run into that yet. As far as our shelter, some of the things that we've done is we've actually even gotten like larger cots for our seniors, because I know some of them said it was super uncomfortable for them to try to get into the cots, get in and out. So we've even gotten more of the wider cots so that they can get in and out. We try to have things where they can, have handrails, things like that, so that they, again, can get in and out of those cots. So it's really just, again, mainly working with caregivers, organizations, and then making sure our shelters have anything that is needed by for our older adults and persons with disabilities.
Got
Hope
it.
that answers.
I will
and
say that the Alzheimer's Association has a really detailed plan about how to help support those with dementia and Alzheimer's during a disaster, and I will include that when I send out all the
And
resources.
that's great, because we're going to learn from this too. So just so you know, we're not the experts in all. We're learning too. So that's great. So thank you for the question,
Right.
Kim, and thank you for that resource,
And
Sydney.
my one other question, and this is just because I just had to know, what exactly do you do about the livestock
Oh,
if
you know
there's a
what? Okay,
disaster?
well, I will tell you that at one point we had somebody call and they want us to move like 500,000 cows. It was some astronomical number, and of course we can't. So what we do is we have worked with dairies to sort of move cattle from dairy to dairy. So a lot of times that's what will happen is they'll come in and say, okay, my dairy's not flooded. We'll move your cows over there. In some cases, we have moved some out, but we can only move so many. So that's a really difficult one, because our county is just, inundated with dairies, but it's really just sort of partnering with their neighbors the best they can.
And I will
Thank you.
also say, yeah, our animal services manager is amazing, and she has tons and tons of contacts around the county for large animals and livestock animals. And so she is a big part of our response. I just can't speak enough about what she brings to the table. So definitely partnering with your animal services manager and staff. They have information that we may not.
Yeah, it's huge. We have utilized them so much, and they have partnerships with like large like ag centers where we have set up, shelters just for animals. I mean, we've had goats and pigs and ducks and rabbits and everything else there, and they have set up these emergency shelters in just like hours, and have had people bring their animals down. So
Thomas, you're on mute still.
Thanks, Sydney. Kim, in regards to the livestock, as a member of the Care and Shelter Branch, I have here in Monterey County, the SPCA is one of my partners in the EOC, so they're really great as well. If they're part of your EOC's Care and Shelter Branch, like Dana and Carrie were saying, I mean, they've got connections. They work with the large animal and livestock folks to get, animals out of danger. And then same thing with your other question about people with dementia or other disabilities. I work with our IHSS program, and as soon as we're notified of an incident, they can get a listing of all their customers that are in the affected zone, as well as through the AAA, my Title III providers who work with people with dementia also contact the caregivers and those families that have individuals with dementia to make sure that they're okay during a disaster.
Yeah, we do the same. That's those reports. So what we've done is we have report, of course, every program has reports. So I also have IHSS. So we do the same. So what we'll do is we'll pinpoint where the flood is or where the fire is, and then we'll call and say, okay, you need to pull a report with these zip codes, and you need to start calling. And they know. I mean, they are hitting the ground running. So everybody's aware and everybody knows what to do. And that's one of the first things we do. Let's make sure people are safe. And if they're not safe, what do they need? Are they in a wheelchair? Do they need an ambulance to go get them? What do they need? So that's the first thing we're doing to make sure people are safe. So thank you, Thomas.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? I know I did have I really enjoyed the resource list. It's one of the things that I thought was really cool. I just wanted to make sure that you are basically when we were talking about it, that you are including all those local partners that you've built those relationships with and resources they have, because it's not, as we've talked about, as you guys said, which I think is great. It's like, it's not about everything we can do. It's about how we can support our local partners to support our populations, right? Because there's only so much as the state, as the county, as the AAA that we can do, especially in the immediate, but we can all work together to connect all of those resources as you guys have kind of talked about. And I know we didn't like using resource list because it makes it think that it's like an Excel spreadsheet with all of these things that are available that you might have or might be, in Porterville or in city A versus in needing it to city B and things of that nature.
Sydney, one of the things that we've done in conjunction with the emergency preparedness guides, which have really been well received down here, is we have a system called Alert Monterey, which is it's really like Everbridge or whatever they're using now to notify people when an incident occurs. So we kind of pair those two things together when we're out doing outreach. We've got the CDA guide, but we also have the Alert Monterey and kind of help seniors, at least begin their preparedness efforts about filling out the vial of life portion and having that on their fridge, and also registering for that text notification in the event that there is an emergency in their area.
And Thomas, thank you for bringing that up. And that is one of the first things we do when we're talking to people, is to encourage them to sign up, because we also have Everbridge, we have Alert TC. And so that is the very first thing we ask them to do, is at least get signed up to get an emergency notification. So thank you for reminding us, Thomas.
You're welcome.
So I just wanted to finish with my last slide. This is actually a picture I took about a month into our floods. I was on my way to one of our shelters to work in, and it was not a pretty day, but the view was absolutely gorgeous. So I try to fit this picture in every presentation I do, because it's a reminder for myself that I do this work because I want to honor and have the best outcome for our community, for our staff, and for myself, when the disaster comes. So I would like to thank all of you for listening, and hopefully provided some helpful information or insight. And again, I want to thank Sydney for inviting us to present to you.
Any of you guys are history buffs, we had a lake. We actually had a lake here, years, I want to say 50 years ago. Well, that lake came back. It's called the Tulare Lake. And it was actually, at one point you could drive boats on it, you could do it, and it came back to the point where you could do that. So, if you're any history buffs, research Tulare Lake. It's pretty interesting.
I do have one question, Sydney, if we have time.
Yeah.
So when you guys have your heat waves, is there any financial relief for people that maybe can't even afford their electricity bills? I know that has been, in California, because especially with PG&E just being through the roof. Is there any kind of relief that way?
Well, the
Are you
county,
asking us or Sydney? Or I was gonna say us? No. I mean, we'll try to find like a partner. So if somebody's air conditioning goes out, we'll work with like Habitat for Humanity. We'll call some of our local partners to see if anybody can, put in an air conditioning, or we'll try to get fans if that's about the best we can do. I wasn't sure. Or are you talking about like high electricity bills?
Yeah, I'm talking about like I know people, it's like even if they don't have a broken air conditioner,
Yeah.
they may not be able to put it on because they just couldn't afford the bill. So, you find people hanging out in Walmart and,
Yeah.
just to get cool. So there's no,
I know
I
that
wish.
I was gonna say the only thing I know about is those that are already in place for, those who qualify for some of the programs with all of the electricity companies, but I don't know of anything specific for like older adults. So I would say that if you had someone who had that problem, have them submit their information to the specific electric companies, and see if they can get that adjusted for income, those income-based electricity programs. And each one, I'm sure it's called something different if you're with, SoCal Edison, PG&E, SMUD, or any of the other ones. But they do exist, but they're not specific for older adults. But if they're income based, they do.
It's
so
such
I'd
a
like to,
hard thing, Maggie. It's such a hard thing, and it's heartbreaking, especially when people are having to choose between, turning on their air, eating food, buying their medication.
I would say first we do refer people to 211 for all the potential programs that are out there. I'm familiar with a nonprofit in our area, and I don't know if this nonprofit is everywhere or if it's in other communities, but they have it's called Proteus, and they have some grant programs where they're able to do like I think they do like insulation for houses if you meet their criteria or qualifications. And they will come and I don't know if they change out your windows or, like I said, give you more insulation to be able to hopefully lower your bills. And then they do some like change out some appliances. But I don't know where the grant comes from that they have or if it's across the state. So I would also encourage just go back to do some research on the different nonprofits in your area because some of them may list that on their websites, which is kind of the way I learned about Proteus.
Lane just brought up a program that she did say would help with electric bills, but the federal budget zeroes it out right now, unfortunately.
Yes. I was going to say, so if there are not any other questions, I want to say thank you, first of all, to Carrie and Dana for doing this presentation. I really appreciate it. It was so great. And I think it's honestly amazing to learn from all of our other AAAs to kind of see what's being done successfully. So do not be surprised when I tap on someone else to do one. Not next time, but the time after that. We won't have it every single one. But I just wanted to say that I really appreciate it. I will be sending out the PowerPoint, and I'm hoping that the recording worked. My skill knowledge on Zoom is not 100%, but I just wanted to say I thank you so much, and I appreciate it. So if there aren't any other questions, I will give you that extra 15 minutes of your life back. But thank you so much.
Yep. Thank you, Sydney.
Thank
And
you,
thank you,
Sydney.
everyone.
Alrighty.